So today we're going to be using the accounting manager role center, and showing the financial features that are new for 2015, including cash flow forecasting, analysis by dimension with export to Excel, bank rec, which has some great new features in this version, registers, reversing and register for a journal, fixed assets, some good features around fixed assets in this new version, PDF and email directly out of NAV, which is a standard function now, and payment registrations. So I'll hand over to Caroline.
What we're going to go through today are, like we said before, just some of the new things relating to the financial side of NAV. I'm not going to go through every single process that someone with the accounting manager role would have. We'd probably all fall asleep, and we'd be here for a really long time, but that's okay. So what we're going to do is go through a few of the things. Now, Douglas, I don't know how much you've seen of NAV 2015 even. So I'll take you guys through a little bit of the features, but I'll try not to repeat what we went through on Tuesday for the guys from Trempac. So essentially, this is our role center. This is our home page that I come to whenever I log in as the accounting manager, and it pretty much gives me access to all the financial side of things that I would need. So I have access to my the things I would do on a daily basis, looking at vendors, items, customers, looking at my budgets, my bank accounts, my chart of accounts, of course, up the top. But then I also have on my navigation pane, I've got things singled out, so I can click on journals, and I've got all of my different type of journals that I can access. I go to my fixed assets tab, and it'll show me all the things relating to my fixed assets, which we'll look at selling the VW transporter a little bit later. My cash flow tab has information for setting up our cash flow forecasts, and cost accounting, posted documents, all of my history that relates to financials. So I won't see things like my posted pics for my warehouse. I won't see any of the inventory related stuff that doesn't relate to my financial side of things. I have access to administration tasks here for setting up number series, accounting periods and currencies that all relates to my job. And then, of course, just like everybody else, I have the departments menu, which will give me access to all of the elements of NAV that I need, that I don't need on a daily basis. So if I go back to home, what we'll have a look first at is the cash flow forecasting that they've introduced, which we'll show in this chart once we've set it up, but we'll go and have a look at that now. So in my cash flow forecasting, I access it by clicking on the cash flow navigation option, and I can click on my cash flow forecasts that I've set up. I'm going to have a look at my cash flow for 2015 forecast. So I just double click on that, and that opens up the setup window. I'll just pull that down a bit. Now I've got a number, a description. They're very simple to set up. I have my GL budget that I've got the range from, and I've got my date range for my payments that I want to include. So what I do is I click on my cash flow worksheet. Now at the moment it's blank because I haven't added any worksheet lines, but I can get NAV to suggest them. So I click on the suggest worksheet lines, and it comes up with this request page that I can put my information into. So I say which cash flow forecast I'm running this for, which it automatically populates with the one I've selected, and then I can select the types of entries that I want to include and exclude. So I'm interested in my liquid funds, I'm interested in my receivables, my sales orders. I don't do service orders. My fixed asset disposal I don't want to include at this stage. I don't have any manual revenues for cash flow, so I won't include that. My payables, my purchase orders. I'm not going to include the other things at the moment because I don't have them set up for my company, and I just simply say OK. So NAV goes through and has a look at those date ranges that I set up, and it includes anything that it thinks is going to impact my cash flow based on those entry types that I wanted to include. So this is just a worksheet for now. I can delete this. Excuse me. I can change the amount. So for example, let's say my customer invoice, it's from 2011. The likelihood that I'm going to get this amount is pretty low. So I can change it to say, look, in all likelihood, we're probably going to have to, you know, bank on actually only getting maybe 80,000 of that amount. And I can put that entry in there. It's not changing how much we've received. This is just for forecasting ahead to see what our cash flow is going to be like. Sorry. Now, when I say register, I can come in here and apply those entries. So I simply say register, and it asks me again, like NAV does. It gives me a confirmation to double check that I really want to do this, and I say yes. Goes through and says that my worksheet lines are successfully registered. I say okay. So they disappear from my worksheet, which is fine. I close my window here, and what I want to do is click on this Show in Chart on Roll Center. So if I click that there, and I say okay, and I go back to my home Roll Center, here it's come through. Now it's not looking very healthy. It looks like there's something pretty dire happening in 2014, which I think I'll go and have a look at again. So if I go to my cash flow again, I click on my cash flow forecast, I click on here and open it up again. I'm going to have a look at my cash flow worksheet and see what is that, what's that transaction that's really blowing everything out. I say suggest worksheet lines again. I choose my same entry options and I say okay. And I'll just have a quick scroll down here, see if there's something a little bit quirky that is blowing everything out. Now, as NAV does, I've got a whole lot of hashes to imply that there's something that can't fill in that field. Now this vendor, it's showing that I have to pay them a whole heap of money. Now I don't really want to do that at all. So I'm going to modify that to say, look, you know, in realistically, I'm only going to pay them about maybe 10 million of that. I register my lines again. I say okay. And I say, I close that. Okay. And I go back to my home. And that's looking a bit healthier. So, you know, I have blown out what my actual costs were, but I'm going to have a discussion with that vendor and see what we can do about it. But what this shows us is I can select my start date to be either from today or from the first entry date. I can change my period lengths. At the moment it's set to year, just so that we can have a clear picture of what's happening each year. And I can show whether I just want to show accumulated cash or a change in cash or both combined. So I've selected combined, so it gives me that change as well as what's accumulated. So what I can see now is my GL account numbers that relate to these transactions, and I can double click on my red section and it will bring up my cash flow forecast entries, and it'll show me everything that's making up that value. So I've got a whole lot of sales orders that haven't been processed yet that I'm expecting to receive payment for in 2014. And I close that. So it's a nice representation of what your cash flow is like. It's really important to be able to, you know, forecast on it and have a clear picture on where you guys are sitting. And we can do that really easily. And you've seen how easy it is to, you know, run that suggest worksheet lines again to update it, make changes if I know something that NAV doesn't, and it comes through in that representation here. Now it's not on every roll center, but it would be on the ones that are available relating to finance. What we'll have a look at quickly now is looking at exporting to Excel. So if I go to something like the analysis by dimensions, so the export to Excel is really neat, and it can be used all over the place. But if we go to the analysis by dimensions, I'm going to have a look at my campaign analysis dimensions. So this is not new functionality. NAV has always had this analysis by dimensions. The display is obviously different from what you guys have now with the classic client, but we are able to see the matrix. If I click on the export to Excel function, NAV will open Excel automatically. I have lots of transactions here, so it can take some time to open Excel. And it will display this information for me so that I can then, slice and dice it and have a look at where the money's going. So I can see Excel's opened here. I click on it here, and here's my analysis by dimensions in a format that I can now play with the pivots. I can see my general info is just the basic overview of what's being filtered. I click on my data tab, and this is the data that's been exported from NAV. So I can edit this in here. It's not changing data in NAV. I can have a look at this and take out entries that aren't relevant. I can click on my pivot table and I can do transactions in here. Sorry, not transactions. I can click on options and measures that will give me information that I need. So that integration between Excel, I don't want to save it, Excel and NAV is really fantastic. And you'll see this export to Excel all over the place. The other area that you'd see it is in this send function. We can send to Excel. I could send it to Word if I really wanted to. It probably doesn't lend itself to that in terms of the data that I've got, but it certainly does. You'll see this export to Excel all over the place. Now, one of the other things that they've improved beautifully is the bank reconciliation. Excuse me. So what I'll do is go to my bank. I think I've got bank here, don't I? Yes, bank accounts here. Okay. And my new Bank of Canberra, I'm going to do a bank rec for them. If I double click on my new Bank of Canberra and I go and have a look, as we have in 2015, we don't have buttons down the bottom which are relating to cards and functions. We have everything up here in the ribbons. We have the tabs that define what we can access relating to this bank account, and we have the functionality on the home ribbon as well. So we can click on bank account reconciliations, and I've got one sitting here that I'm going to use now. So if I click on I double click on it to open it, usually, or I click on edit and it opens it up for me. So what I can see here are my bank account ledger entries, which are relating to this bank account. And what I want to do is import my bank statement. So I've received my bank statement from the new Bank of Canberra. In the background, there are settings for all of the major Australian banks that we have been able to map so that when you import their statement, it matches to the correct fields in NAV. So what we do is run the import bank statement function. It says, go and find me a file to import. I click on my NAB statement and say open. And it goes through and pulls in all the information here. So I have transaction date, my type, my description, which comes through from the file, my statement amount, and my applied amount is 0, so therefore my difference is the whole. And what I ask NAV to do is match automatically. So NAV will go through and based on the date ranges, so I'm going to say I'm going to give it a 2-day date tolerance. Say OK. And it'll go through and match. It's been able to find 5 lines that are the same out of the 23. And I say OK. Now anything that has been matched is marked in green. And we can see, if I just expand this a bit, we can see that it's been applied against our bank account ledger entries. So what I can do now is go through and I can review manually like I would now, and match any manually that I'm wanting to that are relevant. But that import of the bank statement is something that is going to save you guys time in a major way, as long as we've got those that set up in the background to say which bank type it is, and we've got the format right. So I can go through that bank reconciliation as I would now, and finish it off and then post it. So I'll close that. Now, one of the other things that is really cool is the reversing of a journal. So, well, reversing of a register based on a journal. So let's say I've done a sales journal, but I incorrectly applied it to the wrong GL account. So I go to my posted documents, I go to my GL registers, which pretty much holds everything that touches the general ledger. And I can see I've done another reversal. I've clearly had a bad day. I haven't been thinking about things properly. I'm going to have a look at this entry here. So if I have a look, it's a sales journal. I can have a look at the ledger entries here. And I see it was an invoice. It was a journal line, an invoice going into other receivables, and against customer domestic. Now, that wasn't the right account. It shouldn't have gone into other receivables. So I simply, very easily, click on this line and say reverse register. And what NAV does is does my reversal entry for me. I can click on reverse, so it works everything out for me. Click on reverse, I say yes, and it tells me that the entries were successfully reversed. I click down here, I can see that it's already created my reversal entry for me that I can go and have a look. I click on my general ledger and I can see that it's done the opposite of what I had done incorrectly first. So now I can go and create my sales journal going to the correct GL account. But it's clearly in here. So I can see very easily that my transactions from an auditing perspective are clearly and transparently detailed here. It's not as though someone's going in and changing the value or changing the GL account. We've got a clear trail of what's happened, and done very easily using this reverse register function. Another function that NAV has improved is the disposal of a fixed asset when we sell it. So if I click on my fixed assets, I can see my list of fixed assets here, and I'm going to sell my VW transporter. I'm going to click on my item and I'm going to have a look at it. I'm going to have a look at my book value. So my book value for this item, for this fixed asset, is $31,000 roughly. Now I'm going to sell it to somebody. So if I go and if I go home and I'll create a sales invoice. Oh, I really want a sales invoice. Okay, so my role doesn't really need sales invoices apparently. So what we'll do is use the search function, and you can do this on anything that exists in the menu in NAV. Is simply go up into the right hand side, type in sales invoice, and I can go and create one. So if I click on the sales invoices here, and I'm going to select a new one, or select to create a new one. Now my customer number, and something that you might notice which is different from your current versions, I don't have a number field here. So for my role center, I don't need to choose a number series. I'm getting the default number series for sales invoices. So it's trying to improve the data entry experience so that I'm not needing to fill in fields that aren't relevant for me. So NAV will automatically assign a sales invoice number for me once I start putting in some detail. And as we looked at on Tuesday, we have these mandatory fields outlined with a red asterisk. So I have to put in a customer number, of course, to sell someone something. So I'm going to sell my VW transporter to customer 20,000. Here's Selangorian, one of my favourites. Now they're overdue, but I'm still going to let them buy our VW. Awesome. Now, as we saw on Tuesday, we have some of the detail here. We've got the header information. We've got our fast tabs down here, which are showing that I have a 30-day payment terms code. Therefore, my due date is the 27th of the 6th. And I'm going to type in my line section as I would now, and I'm going to choose my fixed asset. Now I click on my number field is mandatory. I click on down and I get my list. It's going to be my VW transporter. I don't need a location code because I'm not selling it from a specific location. There's just one of them. And I need to put in a unit price. I must have my language set incorrectly because it's showing VAT. Normally, if I have my language set to Australian, it'll show GST. So how much are we going to sell it for? I think we should probably sell it for at least 25,000. As per our previous session, we can see that the totals come up, including the GST. And we can see that right here. We don't need to press F9 to see statistics. And we want to post it. So we're posting our sales invoice and selling our VW transporter. I was just thinking about it. Hopefully not for too much longer.
Maybe we need to assign a little bit more RAM to our demo environment.
It is one of the things about our system is because we hold so many people's databases, well, not actual databases, but copies. What didn't it like? The combination of dimensions. So NAV still gives us helpful errors to be able to figure out what's wrong. Combination of dimensions used in invoice number is blocked. Okay, can't be used concurrently. So as per now, I would go to my line and have a look at my dimensions, and I see my combination, which is blocked, which was project and department. Is it project and department? Sorry, let's see that error again. I should have written it down, sorry. Customer group and project, it doesn't like. Okay. So I'm not going to, let's see, I'll remove this one. Say okay, and we'll try the posting again. Okay, so my sales invoice is posted. If I go back to my fixed assets and I have a look at my VW transporter, and what I'm going to do is have a look on Navigate and have a look at my ledger entries. I'll just make this a bit bigger so I can see. Ledger entries. Now what I can see is my ledger entries relating to my fixed asset. I can see my 25,000 that I've got for it. I can see my gain or my loss. In this case, it's a loss. And I can see my disposal entries, which happen automatically. So currently, you would need to do those manually, but NAV now does it automatically for you, which will save lots of time when you're selling your fixed assets. And we say, okay. We'll have a look at the copy and paste function. So as per we saw the integration with Excel being able to export to Excel, we can also copy and paste to Excel really easily. So if I go to some of my recurring journals, if I have a look at my accruals batches, I'm going to copy into Excel. Simply right click on that line there and I say copy rows. And I go into Excel and paste. Now let's say these are my recurring journals that have been set up. For whatever reason, I need to change it. So I'm going to have a few things that I need to change. I'm going to change this to be my end of month for November 2014. So again, this is simply editing in Excel, not changing anything in NAV at this stage. I'm going to change my description so that it's November 14. I'm going to change my amounts. So for my 8210 account, it's actually going to be 200. For my 8110, it's going to be 450 that month. And this one's going to be 700. So to paste back into Excel, I could have a really massive list of entries that I needed to modify, and I simply select them, excluding the header row, because NAV doesn't want those header row entries. I say copy. I go back to my NAV where I had my recurring journal. I right click here and I say paste rows. It asks me, are you sure? Oh, hang on. Yep, let's see if we can go for that. Yes, it will overwrite what I've got here now. So I can see now it's updated my document number, it's updated my description, and if I scroll across to the right, it's updated my dollar values. So this is something that can be done in many places in NAV. Probably lends itself beautifully to journals, but you could do it anywhere which has lists of data in this kind of format. As long as you keep the columns in the same order, it's always best to start with a copy out of NAV, paste into Excel, and then edit, and then copy and paste back into NAV. But that's something that can really save lots of time when you're doing data entry that's easier to do in Excel than it is in NAV. Or even things like you're receiving information from someone who doesn't use NAV relating to something that needs to be input into NAV for you. So I can close my journals. Something else that I can do is that email. So let's say if I go back into my accruals journal, let's say I need to email someone who doesn't use NAV or is external to the company that I need to send information with regards to these journals. I can simply click on my little blue arrow. I can say send email as attachment. And NAV will open my Outlook client, in this case, attach an HTML version of my list. And I can type in my recipient, type in my email message, and go from there. So it does create an HTML of what I've got rather than an Excel. So it lends itself to reports and things like that, but also for things that you don't want to be edited. We close that. Close that, and I can say send. So that integration with Office, essentially, with Word and Excel and Outlook is really seamless now, and it's really lovely and lends itself to that integration being very easy and making life easier for you guys. One last thing I wanted to show you guys is something that is in a different role center. So I have a role center open here for the president of the small business, this one here, excellent. And you'll see the role center looks quite different. I have different KPI charts. I haven't set up all of these. They're not as useful for today, but I have different activity queues. I can see some notifications down here. But one of the things that I wanted to show you was the payment registration. So for smaller businesses, this is a really handy tool to register my payments received from a customer. So what I get from this list is everything that's outstanding from my customers. I have the customer number, I have what the description is, whether it was an invoice or an order or even an opening entry, which has clearly been outstanding for a while. I have what the due date was. I have the remaining amount. So not the original amount, but the remaining amount. And what I can simply do when the Canon Group send me that $185,039, I simply click Payment Made. Now it puts in my amount received, it puts in my date received, and I can simply say Post Payments. I get a nice little message to say that the payment is overdue, and I could calculate interest for late payments by choosing my finance charge memo option here. I'm not going to do that. The Canon Group are a great customer, and I'm going to just post their payment and be happy that they've paid me. So it's a very easy, quick way. I can do multiple payments, so I could say, you know, New Concepts has paid for this one, the Beef House has paid for this one, Selangorian has also paid for this one. Now, what I can also do is adjust the amount received. So I can say, look, they did owe me $647,000. They've actually only paid $600,000, but I'm going to be happy with that as well. So I can adjust that. And what NAV does is adjusts that remaining amount so that I can see really clearly what's still outstanding. So I can post for multiple customers. That's not a problem at all. And say post. Currencies, awesome. Okay, so I don't want to do my one for the Beef House. So as per standard NAV setup, if my bank account needs to be in the same currency for the transaction that it's received in. So this is a really nice little tool to be able to register your cash receipts from your customers in a really neat, easy, quick way that would, you know, potentially be useful for very quick entry and those who don't really want to spend lots of time in their cash receipt journals section.
NAV 2015 provides increased efficiency and greater insight for financial controllers through the new bank rec functionality, integration and interaction with Office, lots of good functionality improvements and summary of key information and the exclusion of information that's not relevant to the user. So improved ease of use and efficiency overall. So once again, if you're interested in an upgrade, talk to myself, or if you have any questions, feel free to email them through. We talked about the report usage tool and an analysis session to analyse what customisations you have and whether or not they're necessary with the new features and functions of the new version. Feel free to contact me with for any questions or any information about NAV 2015.